that's super interesting to me. I don't even, like I said, know what that really is. Welcome to the On the Edge podcast with your host, Scott Groves. What have you seen as far as the growth in Nevada? Like, you've been doing this 20 years, some boom and bust cycles. I mean, when I was coming up here in my 20s, because my uncle lives up here and then we had a condo up here, it was casinos or bust. And now you've got real sports teams and real tech businesses and a bunch of, Mark Wahlberg's trying to build a movie studio here. And I know 2 mortgage CEOs that have moved up here. I think the companies are coming pretty soon. So what have you seen as far as growth of, are you a blackjack dealer or a bartender? Because that's all there is in Vegas.
Yeah. So you're starting to see some of those larger companies come into the state, right? Into Henderson with these tax abatements, with the Las Vegas Global Alliance Committee is bringing these people in. I think the misstep that we're doing is Vegas always wants the big shiny thing, right? The sports,
right?
The large manufacturing companies that are going to bring 1,000 employees. I think we're missing it with some of the specialty companies that we should go after to bring out here, right? We're still not as diversified as what we'd like, and we are kind of like a weekend town. If you were to take your finger and just remove the Strip, great weekend for an example, 4th of July, and we did not have that. The city would be a small city.
Right.
So we need to bring other small to medium-sized companies that can provide value for the community. There's a reason that our private schools are doing so well, because the people that are fleeing are going to be the high income earners.
Right.
We're going to put their kids in the private schools, but we need to bring businesses that will employ Las Vegans or bring some of their employees to come with them as well.
Yeah. When I think of that, like, prototypical middle America, like, you're making a good living, I think of some friends of mine that do like low voltage installs, right? Mm-hmm. They're like, they're not welding, shaking hands with the devil down at the bottom of a coal mine. It's low voltage. Like, you're probably not even gonna get shocked. You're running Ethernet wire, but they'll make 70, 80 grand a year running wire. And if you can bring some more companies like that here, cause you're right. It's like Google, bunch of small mom and pops, and then the Strip. Google has one of the biggest data centers out here. And then on the other side, we've got like Switch, giant tech companies, yep. Shiny object that the state brought in, and then a bunch of like mom and pops, and then the Strip. So it's like, you're right. We need some more of those up and coming businesses, less than 500 people, maybe less than $100 million in revenue. Like, that would be cool to see more of those businesses here.
Because those employees for those companies are going to send their kids to the public schools.
Right.
And that's what we need to strengthen, is getting the public schools stronger for the state of Nevada, so that we can have, and I know businesses that have jumped right over Nevada going to Arizona or Texas because of the public schools, for the business owners wanting their employees to have better options than what we have out here.
Hey, this quick interruption is brought to you by me, Scott Groves, the host of the On the Edge podcast. This podcast is brought to you by me. I'm a loan officer who can help you with a mortgage in all 50 states across the United States. I also coach loan officers. So if you are a home buyer who's looking to get a mortgage, if you're a realtor who's looking to partner with an awesome loan officer, or if you're a loan officer looking for coaching, get in touch with me. It's those sources of revenue that allow us to produce this podcast and get out a new episode to you every week for the last couple of years. So if you're looking for a mortgage, if you're looking for a mortgage lender to partner with, or you're looking for a mortgage coach, I'm your guy. Now back to your regularly scheduled programming. So tell me about, all of a sudden you want to start like a conservative political action committee. Well, first of all, you're not, for those that are watching on YouTube, you will know this. For you, those of you listening, Rich is not a transparent white guy, right? So from what I've heard, no minorities are allowed to be conservatives, right? Because all white people are racist. So how exactly does, I'm guessing, of Hispanic origin become the leader of a conservative PAC?
Well, I've been involved for 10 years, right? The last 3 years with COVID and the insanity that some of these decisions that people that we've elected to look after us really made me get outspoken, right? I am Hispanic. I'm married to an incredible woman. We believe in God. We go to church, and now I'm a bad guy, right? So I think that the message needs to be shown, and I think that some of the left side has failed minorities. And the funniest thing to watch is Charles Barkley talk about it on TNT. He goes, my parents voted Democrat, and it hasn't gotten any better for us. Why would I not give Trump a chance?
Right.
Right. So I think it's, and I also think that the far left and the far right have gotten way out of whack.
Oh, way crazier.
Way crazy. Right.
Yeah.
And I've got friends that are amazing Democrats that I will support. Right. But current standards, they would be considered conservative.
Oh, yeah. For sure.
And like the one guy I'm enjoying right now, Scott, is Robert F. Kennedy.
Yeah. Yeah, I would vote for him over probably the rest of the field right now. I do like DeSantis. I would probably vote for DeSantis just because I think whether it's by accident or ego, I don't care why it is. He's basically made all the right moves, I think, in Florida with the COVID policy, with the supporting police policy, all that stuff. I'm like, you don't have to be a crazy right-wing conservative QAnon person to have some good conservative values. I think DeSantis does. I think he's probably also an egomaniac, just like anybody else who's going to run for president. But, him over Biden, or him over Kamala, or him over Buttigieg, or God forbid it's him versus Newsom. Like, I just can't imagine anybody comparing the state of Florida and the state of California, talking about the big cities like San Francisco, which is just completely run amok, and be like, yeah, no, that's what we want. We want more of San Francisco throughout the entire nation. Like, I don't understand how that's going to go down. But it's going to go down. Like, it's obvious. He keeps taking pot shots at DeSantis. Like, whoever the kingmaker is in the Democratic National Party or National Committee has told Newsom, like, you're going to be the guy. I don't know if they assassinate Biden. I don't know if they have
it's coming.
Something's coming where like that everybody knows Newsom's like the heir apparent. But it'll be weird how that shakes out. And now this podcast is probably going to get canceled because I said something about the president. But
yeah, so the PAC started, I've been a member of a PAC, Keystone Corporation, right?
Okay.
I've been on that PAC for 10 years. And then I've had younger guys approach me and they're like, I don't want to go to a chicken dinner. How can we get involved and to do something different, something engaging, something that is fun, something that we can bring guys that are in their early 20s to their early 30s to get involved.
Yeah.
Right. So that's what started the Caldera Club. Right. It was just a couple of young guys that asked me to start something up. Let's do something different and fun. Right. And then you've got people. One of our first events that we're working on is bringing somebody from a special forces team to do a day of shooting at the range and then have a private dinner, no phones, and just a conversation.
Well, if you need somebody, I got a couple people for you.
Yeah. But it's this thing where people want to get engaged. And I believe in all of life right now, Scott, there are people looking for leaders.
Right.
And if you have something within you to have a voice, now's the time for us to stand up. And we need to give people options of how to get involved and give them opportunities to write checks, to think about office, and how to move up that political ladder, right? You don't have to run for senator. You could run for your local assembly. You could be a part of the planning commission. There are so many different things that the left trains people in how to get involved that the right doesn't. We have a horrible narrative, and some of our messengers are worse.
Yeah,
so
totally.
You need to show people that, hey, you can be Hispanic. You can have struggled, been successful, lost it, and come back again and still continue to grow.
Yeah.
And still do well.
So I made a couple of notes here that I want to come back to the horrible messaging and stuff. But, when I think of, okay, who's in the audience right now who's rolling their eyes of like, oh, a PAC or a super PAC is just a way that rich people donate money to manipulate elections. That, that's kind of the narrative, right? Once it was upheld in the Supreme Court. Oh, do you know what case that was?
I don't know.
You're going to have to look it up, Chris, on what Supreme Court case upheld the right of PACs and super PACs. So, the negative narrative out there is like, oh, you just take money from rich people and get their candidates unfairly elected. What does a PAC actually do?
Fundraise.
Okay. For who, for what?
So you have different PACs. You have our PAC, we do not get in federal races. We are all state races, right?
Got it.
So you fundraise and then you give that money to certain candidates for them to get elected, right? And I think Barack changed the view of PACs because a lot of his first election and win was all grassroots.
Right.
Right. Which is what, who's a crazy guy in the wheel, Elon Musk and him go back and forth.
Citizens United versus FEC.
Thank you. Citizens United. That was the one.
The one with the mitts, and all the majority of his donations were Bernie Sanders.
Yeah.
Were $5 and $10, right?
Right.
Like you can take the 5 to 10s, you can go up to the 10 and 25, but it's really trying to find people that want to get involved, help them create that message and get them involved and elected in those state offices.
So tell me if this is correct. You're a realtor. You probably have a bunch of like-minded friends, whether it be, a community you belong to of ethnic Hispanics that all go to Catholic church together, or
Did you just make an assumption about
totally. Or a bunch of realtors you work with, or a bunch of buyers in a particular community that you have supported. You'll get 100 guys to come to a cigar mixer, pay $1,000 for the sponsorship, or because you're sponsoring cigars and whatnot, and you'll do a whole fundraising thing. You'll end up with net $80,000, and then you'll say, hey, there's a guy who's a really good conservative voice. He's running for the planning commission. We think he's going to do good things in Summerlin, Nevada. Let's put $25,000 towards his campaign so he can go buy, flyers and yard signs and shit like that. Is that how it all works?
Correct.
Okay. I could see just the libertarian in me who does not like government elections at all. I could see how somebody would be like, well, like what stops Rich from taking $100,000 from some rich guy and he goes and buys off a politician and says, hey, Mr. City Planner, I'm going to give you $100,000, but the kickback here is you vote for, Scrooge McDuck's big pool installation up on the hillside. He's basically just paying off a politician $100,000 to get his pool that blocks somebody else's pool that, I could see how this stuff could happen. So what
it happens.
It happens. Okay.
Yeah, there was just the gentleman who was the director for the GOP in Ohio was in the Wall Street Journal today, is being I think the sentence that he was given was 16 to 20 years.
For what? For
doing that.
For funneling kickbacks through a PAC and then, getting a politician to deliver special favors.
Yep. And in Ohio, it was the Green Initiative with a nuclear company. So they just said it. And the quote that they used for him, he was running his political career like a mob boss.
Yeah.
So it is there. There's a reason.
So was this the politician or was this the guy who ran the PAC?
That was the politician who was aligned with the PAC.
Okay, I was going to say, because it always seems to be the guy downstream that goes to jail. Never seems to be the politician. Like, I would like to see more politicians let out in handcuffs.
Yep, and this was the politician.
Oh, that's great. That's good things.
Yeah,
okay.
I mean, it was Chris in the Wall Street Journal today, if you want to look it up. It was him, the guy below him.
Yeah.
16 to 20 years, and they're going to appeal it because he's an older guy. Right. So with everything, I'm hesitant to watch what some stuff happens because it is quid pro quo.
Yeah.
It's done, right?
Yeah.
But it's
how do you guard against that? Do you put a cap on what you'll take as donations, or do you just know everybody that's donating, or how do you keep a barrier between you? Like, how do you keep a barrier between the people that are donating, like me, who's just like, man, I just want, if I'm going to live in Nevada 181 days a year, I want it to be a more conservative state. And I don't even necessarily mean conservative like capital C, capital R Republican.
Yeah.
I mean, I want more conservative values being stressed in the state or city I work in. So how do you separate from the me's who might give you $1,000 or $5,000 because I trust you to, back good conservative horses, versus the guy that's like, hey, wink, wink, nod, nod. Here's $25,000. Here's what I'm kind of looking to get out of it. Is that just a character thing on you, or is there some fail safe in place?
No, it's a character thing.
Okay.
And that's why some politicians end up giving money back to certain donors after the donors get in trouble. Because they take it from everybody.
Right, of course.
And then once that donor gets in trouble, they're like, oh, I give him back his money.
Right.
Like, we can't be seen receiving money from this guy.
Yeah, totally. Can you talk a little bit of what you think is good messaging that we'll just call it conservatives or Republicans are putting out, and then maybe what some of the bad messaging is that they're putting out? Like, where are conservative conversations winning and where are they losing and getting their ass kicked?
I don't think they're winning in any conversation right now. I think conservatives traditionally have done everything reactionary. They're not leading the conversations with what they want. And DeSantis could be the front runner, right, with leading conversations, changing legislation to say, we're not going to put up with this.
Yeah.
Right? But most Republicans and conservatives are reactionary to what the left is bringing to the table.
Yeah. I mean, it kind of makes sense, right? Because if you're conservative, by definition, you're like, well, I'll just conserve what already is there and I'll go on with my life and I'll work hard and I'll take care of my family. And, you know, maybe I'm a dirtbag because there's plenty of dirtbags in all political parties. But like, yeah, it's like, we're just going to conserve what's there and like, let's just move on and live our life. Where, you know, if you're a progressive, your goal is to keep changing things and keep progressing. And there's value in both. But right now there seems to be no tension of like, all right, we're getting a little bit of like progressive. Okay, we got to push back a little bit on conservative. It's like, it seems to be all progress. And I don't mean that progress in a beneficial way. I mean progress like change, maybe just for the sake of change.
Change everything.
Yeah, change everything. Burn it all down. It's all horrible. There's nothing legacy that's good.
Let's see how far we can push the conversation before we upset people. And I think that's where we're at with the mothers getting involved.
Yeah.
Give me the option to send my kid somewhere better, right? Let me have the conversation with my child about sex education. Let them excel with those classes and let them have, I think in Clark County, they tried to remove the grading scale. Like they're like no more 5.0s, 4.5s because it's not fair.
Not fair to who?
The kids that aren't trying hard.
So,
and in Clark High School delayed it because a couple of 6 kids needed it to get into their colleges.
Yeah. I mean, it's just so ass backwards to me. But when you think about changing something as behemoth as a school district, and I don't know what the size of Clark County School District is in comparison to LAUSD, because I think LAUSD is now the biggest school district, and it's just completely intellectually captured by the bureaucracy. Like, you're never going to change LAUSD. It's one of the reasons our kids go to school here, and then we go down and visit grandma all the time because they're just not going to go to LAUSD. How do you change something like that? Is it getting board members elected? Do you have to change it one teacher at a time? Do you have to fight the unions? Like, I just think it's something as big and complex and entrenched in bureaucracy as a school district. And I just kind of throw up my hands and I'm like, I'd love to fight the fight with you. Like, Rich, I'd really love to commit to sending my kids to public school. I'm not going to sacrifice them at the altar of what I think is now a progressive establishment in almost all school districts in America. So I'll just work harder and pay the 10 grand each for them to go to private school. Like, I'm kind of done with the fight.
Right.
But I think the fight is important. So how does one fight that fight?
Well, I believe it was Napoleon Hill in Outwitting the Devil said that the school system was broken.
That's like 80 or 100 years ago?
I think it was in 32.
32. Yeah. See when that book came out by Napoleon Hill, Chris.
So
Outwitting the Devil.
It's been broken for a while, but also I believe that a lot of systems are broken, right? So my wife was a school teacher for 10 years. She taught at a school that was Title I, so majority Hispanic, below the poverty line. And she was a food counselor first, right? Because kids were free lunches, and she had kids that did not look forward to summer breaks or holidays because they would go without. So she would give certain kids backpacks on Friday so they would have food during the weekend and or the holidays through 3 Square. Right? So then she also had kids dealing with a lot of mental and social issues before she was able to be a teacher. And this was at her school. Walter Bracken was the top magnet school 3 years in a row.
That was the school she was at.
Correct.
And there was kids that did not have 3 squares a day.
Correct. That principal was allowed to run that school like a business, was the top magnet principal in the nation because she was allowed to go out. She would seek donors, businesses from outside of the school and the community to come in and get involved. Right. So I think that the argument now is, what do you do with Clark County School District? Right. You can pay the teachers more, but they're not safe. Right. Who was that teacher yesterday that I was at her kid's sentencing that was told the administration at El Dorado, this kid has threatened me. I don't feel safe. The kid goes in, physically assaults her, sexually assaults her. On the way out, throws a bookshelf on top of her. She's shown her face twice. The first time was when she was with Governor Lombardo and they signed a bill saying that kids need to be held responsible for what they're doing, right? No different than California, where you can steal whatever you want and just be, they can't chase you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. So our kids, and I asked my wife, with all of these things happening in school, I said, how can we make school safe? And she goes, make the parents responsible for the kids' actions.
Yeah. Oh, 100%.
And there's no accountability.
Yeah.
Right.
And they've detached people so much from anybody having any accountability. Like, we've seen it just progress over the last 20 years where, you hear these horror stories of like, oh, kids being disrespectful. Oh, they'll be kids. Oh, now they're being a little bit more disrespectful. Now they just watch their phone through the entire class and the teacher's not allowed to touch their phone because they'll get sued. Oh, there's a fight in the quad. No teacher's allowed to break it up because there could be a civil liability lawsuit there. And you just go on and on and on and on and on and on and on. And then all of a sudden they're like, oh my God, teachers are in danger. How did that happen? I'm like, what do you mean, how did it happen? Like, this is the logical progression. If I let my kid fuck around and he never finds out, eventually he's going to turn around and just punch my wife in the face because he's a pretty big kid. But you have to you have to have some discipline in place along the line, or my 7-year-old who's already a giant is going to be like a terror.
Right.
And I don't know, I don't understand how they could go through the last 20 years of what's going on in schools and then somehow be shocked that teachers aren't safe.
Well, it's getting worse now, right? I mean, you're seeing the shootings, you're seeing all of these things happening, and it is, I was in Europe a couple of months ago, and a friend of mine looked at me and he goes, how do you send your kids to American schools? And I'm like, well, what? I don't understand. He goes, this was at the end of April, you've had 5 mass shootings since the 1st of April.
Yeah.
Right? So I everything has changed. But it's, how did your kids do during COVID?
They did awesome.
So did mine. How did your friends' kids do that you knew where their parents both worked? They're not tech savvy.
Yeah, they're
fucked. They struggled.
They're fucked.
Correct.
I remember Shaquille O'Neal talking about this, and maybe you can look up this number, Chris. Sorry, having you do a lot of fact checking today. Shaquille O'Neal was talking about something where, like, I want to say 1 million African-American kids disappeared from the public school system and never came back because their school shut down for, 6 months, or if you were in California, a year, 2 years, whatever. And something like 1 million African-American, mostly boys, who are just teetering on that razor blade of like, am I going to be a productive member of society, or am I going to be a school dropout and have to find my way in crime, drugs, all the things that come from poverty if you don't finish high school. And he's like, they just disappeared and nobody gives a fuck, especially the liberals who shut down the schools.
And not just high school. Imagine if you were a 5th grader going into middle school, both of your parents are struggling and you've got to go do something to put food on the table.
Yeah. Yeah. Did you happen to find that, Chris, that talking point from Shaquille?
Yeah, it's Shaquille O'Neal being reported by USA Today, 3 million kids.
3 million kids, yeah. And I mean, I'm sure...
Neither of which are massively credible sources. But,
yeah. And I agree, maybe that stat's only... Maybe it's inflated by 200%, maybe it's underreported by 50%, but somewhere north of hundreds of thousands or millions of African-American kids who Shaquille O'Neal has donated a ton of money to those causes, single kids from African-American families, like, they're just gone. They're just totally fucked.
They're going to come back. They're going to come back in some sort of crime. They're going to come back in some sort of social services need. They're going to come back with mental issues. They're going to come back in incarceration. They're not gone. They're just going to show up no longer as a good citizen.
Yeah, which is heartbreaking. So anyway, back to my original question: how do you change this? Right? How do you start to change the culture where that teacher will maybe one day feel safe going back to work because things have changed? So you talk about holding the parents accountable to their kids' actions. That's a legal change, but what do you do at like the school district level?
What the school district level, and the union will fight it, right, is to make the teachers paid dependent on performance. Mm-hmm. Right? Run it more like a business.
Right.
Right. If your children are not performing, then you don't get that bonus.
Yeah.
Right. Offer them better benefits, offer them more money. We're both in real estate, and I'll tell people, they get excited when they see what their property taxes are. Man, that's nothing. I said, correct. So if you can buy a nicer house, so if you want to, you can send your kid to that public school because the demographics of that community are going to raise the standards of that school.
Yeah.
I said, but why would I want to give or pay more property taxes if the system itself is broken?
Yeah.
Right. I think we should be 2 or 3 different school districts. You need to get more money from the community. You need to be able to give a teacher a income that they can survive on. You see, teaching used to be a good career if 2 teachers were together.
Yeah.
And then they could make above 100,000. My wife, after 10 years being a teacher with a master's degree, her last year, she made $40,000.
Yeah. That's not enough to survive.
No.
Not even close.
And if she had married another teacher with masters, then they're both making 80 grand combined.
Yeah. I just think of the math of buying a house, $80,000, you got a car loan, maybe 1 student loan or 1 credit card. You're lucky if you can qualify for a $400,000 or $500,000 house. Lucky. And there's not a whole lot of those in decent neighborhoods in the, we'll call it the Southwest anymore, whether it's populated areas of Phoenix, Nevada, California, especially. But yeah, you just can't make it. The libertarian in me who just wants everything to be privatized is like, well, no, of course you can't pay these people more because the product they're producing is failing, like by every metric, graduation rates, reading proficiency levels, comparatively speaking against others. So it's a little bit of a chicken of the egg thing where it's like, okay, yeah, maybe you pay more and you have more incentives, so the quality gets better, but maybe also like we just don't have the right system to produce quality teachers and students anymore, and the whole thing needs to be rethought.
So then it goes back to Napoleon Hill.
Right.
Right. He said that the general education system is broken. They're not teaching you how to be a creative thinker. You just learn by the book. Mm-hmm. Right. So the system has been broken for a long time. Right. And you can't continue to throw more money at it if the system's already broken to fix a broken system.
Yeah.
And then it gets worse if the parents aren't involved. Right. So during COVID, my kids thrived. My son and daughter were both in pods with 4 kids, Monday, Wednesday, Friday.
Right.
So I think from COVID, you'll start to see some different schooling potentials to possibly come out of it.
Yeah.
Let's say we gave a large corporation that government funding for that large corporation to provide some sort of special schools for the kids. Maybe we no longer do a 9-month school. Maybe it's a 12-month school with longer breaks because of how bad the summer slip is between, the last day of school and the first day of school. I mean, teachers, the fall semester are trying to catch kids up from what they lost.
Right.
So how are they really gaining if the parents aren't helping them during the summer to stay on their toes?
Yeah, we chose a private school system called Acton, A-C-T-O-N, not acting. My kids are not going to be actors, but A-C-T-O-N, Acton Academy. And their model is they do 6 weeks on, 1 week off, 6 weeks on, 1 week off. And it's technically chartered as like a homeschool support system. So our kids can go to school 8 to 3 every day, kind of traditional 1-room classroom with like 5 to 11-year-olds. But anytime we want to take them out, there's no pressure of like, oh, they weren't there today, they're truant. It's like, no, we have the curriculum. They can catch up on all the busy work on their iPad. And we have found that, first of all, confidence level has gone through the roof since there's the consistency there. But we can also travel with them whenever we want. And then that 6 weeks on, 1 week off, it's nothing. It's the 1 week off. They lose nothing. They're right back to, gold drawer number 6 to 7, because it was only a week. You can't forget that much in a week. And my 7-year-old really tries to forget it all in a week, but you can't. I mean, if you had a normal summer session of 2.5, 3 months off, and my wife and I, we just were not built to be homeschool teachers. We're really good at the social stuff and the experiential stuff. Sitting down and sounding out letters, that's just neither my wife or I's strong suit. He would be, the first 3 months of school, he would be just relearning everything he forgot. So I like that idea. Can it change if you get a good superintendent in there, or is it going to take some county or some state willing to try to bust the union and rethink the entire system? Like, what's it going to take?
We believe in a hand up, not a handout. Let's give people the tools to support themselves.
Yeah.
We're not here to make people dependent on our need. If they're dependent on our need, we have failed as leaders.
Yeah.
Right. And it's same thing. We will give money to people to help them, and it'll be more than what should be given. Right. And in that movie, I'm going to go back. It shows Richard and his wife walking out of a restaurant. When he's walking out, the busser, he gives a tip to. The waiter that didn't wait on him, he gives a tip to. The valet driver who brought his car around gives him a tip. He goes, because we are more than just what our job is.
Yeah.
We're humans.
Yeah, that's good stuff.
And during COVID, we gave, you give tips, right? And when some of these workers had not been working and they're struggling, we're at Porta Subs, and I gave this lady a very nice tip. And she walks, she didn't notice it until I walked out of Porta Subs, right? And she came out and she gave me a hug. And she, my son goes, Dad, what was that for? She goes, she just wanted to say thank you. And he goes, well, what'd you do? I said, I just helped her. You give a little bit more if you have more.
Yeah.
Right? He goes, that's just what we're supposed to do, Sebastian. And he is like, okay. And I think people forget that just because if you are conservative, that we're good people, we just don't tell everybody.
Yeah.
Because it's expected.
Yeah, I just don't want the government to take my money and then go try to give that lady more money, because they're going to fuck it up and they're going to eat up 50% of it in the mix with the bureaucracy. I rather just give her the money. I did the same thing. One of the bigger political fights I ever got in on social media is when COVID, I was like, hey, if you're going out, blah, 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 tip, give your waitress $100. They're serving 1/5 the number of tables because they're trying to arrange something outside. Like, do what you can. Oh, I just got flamed. Oh, you're encouraging people to go out. You want my grandmother to die, blah, blah, blah. No, I'm just saying, if you have the means, be nice. Just be nice. Like, just give a little extra.
Yeah.
And that was attacked. And I'm like, Jesus, man, you just can't win with these people.
You can't. Jimmy Rex, a big real estate agent in Utah, would have dinners, and he asked everybody, give as much as you can. And he had some dinners where he was giving away $5,000, $10,000 to the servers. And she goes, you take this and you make sure everybody gets a little bit, but the majority is yours, because you're not getting clients coming in.
Right. He probably got flamed for going out.
Yeah.
Bonkers.